Don't you do it. This is part 3 of 3 reflexology don't do's. Don't do a sloppy caterpillar. If you're working in the neck, especially the head and neck area, remember that reflex is fairly tiny. Nobody should be doing a sloppy caterpillar that barely touches the neck. Okay, so if you're working on a spot where it really counts and it's a smaller area, your caterpillar needs to be very specific, very detailed, and quite tiny. So you need to shrink it down so you can get at the work area that you need to access with a very detailed, non-sloppy caterpillar. And the difference would be if you went to go see a massage therapist and you had a neck problem, you're in there for a whiplash, and they just do blomp, blomp, blomp instead of like really working up that muscle. And so if you can imagine the same thing, blomp, blomp with a little reflex sloppy caterpillar, you're really not getting the work done. Whereas if I'm shrinking the caterpillar down, if I'm starting a little bit lower and then working my way up, then my client should really be able to tell where there's some tender areas. And I can definitely tell by her face that we've hit a few. So very specific tiny work when you need to do very specific tiny work, nothing sloppy. That ties into our next don't do. The second part for today is don't lose track of your client's goals. So if your client is here, let's say for an earache, then you don't have to do the most detailed tiny reflex work on the pelvis. You can do a broader kind of work on your pelvis reflex when you're working along, so that you are saying hi to that body part, you are allowing that body to regulate what it needs to regulate. You still have the opportunity to find tender reflexes, but you're not going to do as detailed as you would if the goal was whiplash. So let's say the goal is earaches, and then you're doing very specific work up in the, sorry, that was the wrong one, very specific work in the reflex area for inner ear, middle ear, outer ear. You could even turn into a caterpillar and look for very tiny reflex tenderness within those reflexes. But then if you get to something that's kind of unrelated, like the pelvis, you don't need to be as tiny and as specific. And that way you can spend more of your focus time on the areas that count, like the direct ear reflexes for that condition, and maybe immune support and some pain relief. Okay, the third don't do for this part is don't hold the foot back into a tight position where the actual tendons and ligaments of the foot are tight, and then work across those with pressure. Make sure you're not making tight ropey lines that you're then pushing on really hard, because structurally for the foot that could be damaging. So if you want to work in an area, let's say you're working across this upper abdominal area for whatever organs or reflexes might be in there, then you can put the foot into a softened tendon position, and so now I can get in with as much pressure as if I need to. But if I put it into a tight tendon position and I try to use pressure coming across, I do run the risk of damaging one of the tendons or ligaments that runs through there. Okay, those are your 3 don't do's for today.